On housing, which is the big announcement that we're expecting today, given Labour's lacklustre housing record when it was in power, why should we believe you can pull off these enormous figures?
Well, firstly, I accept your criticism that we didn't build enough housing when we were in government for 13 years. We built far more than the Conservatives have done, but we didn't build enough. We spent lots of money bringing up to decent standard the social housing there was. One of the things we've learned over the last 3 years is that was one of our failings. And so what will we do about it? What we'll do about it is give local authorities more power. So, for example, if there is land banking taking place, developers with permission but not building, we will say to them, look, you've got to use the permission or lose it. And we've got a target of at least 200,000 houses, new houses to be built between 2015 and 2020. And there'll be other announcements this afternoon as well, Andrew, not just the housing announcement you've mentioned and the huge good news for small businesses. There'll be other good stuff as well this afternoon.
I want to stick with housing, though, because it is so important. Indeed, Margaret Prosser here mentioned it as the big issues. I mean, you've had targets before. In 2007, your Housing Green paper set a target of 200,000 new houses a year, and then 240,000 you were going to go to. But let me ask you this. The biggest demand for new homes is in the south of England, the south and the southeast of England, which is by and large under the control of Tory councils. If these Tory councils say, we don't want to free the land to build these homes, what would a central Labour government do?
Well, we aren't going to make Conservative councils build new houses. What we're going to do is we've asked Michael Lyons to spend the next 18 months looking at what we can do to get more houses built, particularly in London and the South East. In London, the council leaders I've spoken to today have welcomed this announcement. Most of the 200,000 new homes will be in London and the South East. Most council leaders, Conservative, Lib Dem or Labour, recognise local residents want homes for their children who are grown up. Most local residents who've got their grown up sons and daughters sofa surfing want housing. So it'll be a brave council leader who says, you know what, thanks for this new power you've given me, but I don't want new houses in my backyard.
Well, it may be a very popular way of getting re-elected. Most people don't want new houses in their own backyard. Surely if a
no, Andrew, if you speak to parents who own their homes with adult children who've come back home or who are renting, the average age of the first-time buyer in London is 38. More than half of Londoners are renting. We have a housing crisis, and today's announcement goes part of the way of solving that. And Michael Lyons will spend the next 18 months giving us the solutions to address the housing crisis when we take over the keys to number 10 in 2015.
But the key thing is, despite this target of 200,000 homes, you will not make local authorities make land available for housing. You won't take that power.
Well, no, local authorities will have the power to compulsory
I know they've got
purchase.
The power. It's central government I'm talking about.
Well, no, look, what we've said is this. If you look at the last 3 years, the lowest number of houses built since the 1920s. We've got to do something about that. We've announced today new powers to local authorities who want to do the right thing by their local residents. We've asked Michael Lyons to look at all of the options in relation to what we can do to make a sea change in relation to new houses that are built. That's houses across the piece. New houses for those who are first-time buyers, but also family homes in particular in London and the South East.
All right, well, another announcement we're expecting this afternoon is work on energy bills, which causes a lot of families on average and below average incomes real pain. They've risen. But again, given your record on this, why should we believe you be any better? Average weekly household spend on energy bills doubled under the last Labour government. And I'll remind you that Mr. E. Miliband was the Energy Secretary.
Well, let me remind you that during our time in government, we didn't have a cost of living crisis. In the last couple of years, we did, and we took steps to address that. What we've seen over the last 3 years is energy companies making huge profits, a cartel where the big six do a great deal, and people who have to use gas and have to use electricity paying above inflation bills each week and each month. And you'll hear this afternoon, not been briefed in relation to the detail, you'll hear this afternoon what we will do as a One Nation Labour government to address that.
Okay. You said there wasn't a cost of living crisis under Labour, but Liam Byrne has told us that the cost of living squeeze started in 2005.
The cost of living crisis is in relation. Well, the recession, the worldwide global banking crash that Lehman Brothers.
No, 2005, Sadiq Khan. That was well before the crash.
Andrew, we've said that the squeezed middle, and I talked about this 3 years ago, is a phenomenon that's been going on for the last 2 decades, not 2005, 2008. The squeezed middle is very different from the cost of living crisis. This is where hard-working people, hard-working families, both mums and dads working, can't afford to pay things like tube fares, transport fares, gas bills, electricity bills, can't afford to buy their first property. And that's a phenomenon that's got worse and worse over the last 2-3 years, because a few people have benefited the most from George Osborne's so-called recovery.
Yeah, unlike a few people who made billions when you were in power. Let me just ask you this. You say that there's a living standard squeeze. The problem is it did start in 2005 on your watch, and secondly, the polls say that on living standards, they blame Labour. Twice as many people blame Labour for the squeeze on living standards than blame the sitting Conservatives.
Wow. But we can have fun with this Punch and Judy stuff. What's important
is... It's not Punch and Judy, it's what people think.
Well, Andrew, it's a shame you're not here. Not only is the weather great, but we'd have had a proper Punch and Judy bust-up rather than one sort of, 90 miles over. Look, the reality is this. There are one of the 3 leaders who recognises the problems ordinary Britons are facing today. One of the 3 leaders has the solutions to the cost of living crisis. And you'll hear this afternoon examples of the policies we will try and implement in government to address the real cost of living crisis your viewers, my constituents, are facing.